break down tone. So what is the author's attitude towards the subject? And this ties into purpose. This ties into everything that we've actually been doing. So we know our subject here, right? I'm going to add this up here. Whoops. We'll add it right here. Because I'm running out of room, but that's all right. So our subject here uniqueness mangroves. So it's not just mangroves. I mean, we could sum it up in a single word, but it's really about how unique they are. So now we need to figure out, okay, so what is the author's attitude towards this? What does the author think about this? So as we're looking here, we're looking for words that they use, images, details a little bit, what type of language is used, and how the sentences are structured. So I'm going to use a shape here. I'm going to use rectangle for my tone words. So if survival is an art, then mangroves are artists of the beautiful. I'm going to mark that, artists of the beautiful, particularly if we want to talk diction, use of the word beautiful. So another thing, when you are reading for syntax, reading for tone, you shouldn't be identifying entire sentences. You're looking at small snippets. So if I ask you to provide evidence for a tone word that you chose, it should never, ever, ever be a complete sentence or a paragraph or a significant chunk of text. It should always be individual words or short phrases. All right, so if survival is an art, then mangroves are artists of the beautiful. And I chose that because when we're looking at diction, we're looking at words that are connotative in meaning. So we've got beautiful, artists. And when I see those two words together, to me that carries a pretty heavy emotional weight. So not only that they exist at all, smooth-barked, glossy-leaved, thickets of lapped mystery. So I'm going to also identify that. So smooth-barked. So for me, that goes under imagery, right? Smooth-barked, glossy-leaved, thickets of lapped mystery. But that they can and do exist as floating islands. So here what I see, when I'm reading for diction, which is what I'm doing when I'm reading for tone, I'm also looking for words that are repeated. All right, so I've got exist and exist. I'm going to connect these two together. All right, and then you know what? I'm going to go back here, and I'm also going to mark survival, because to me, survival connects to those words of exist. Floating islands, as trees upright and loose, alive and homeless on the water, I have seen mangroves always on tropical ocean shores. So I'm going to do, when I think of tropical ocean shores, I think of someplace I really want to be. Floating islands, again, someplace that I really want to be. Not a deserted island, a floating island. Florida and the Galapagos, there was the red mangrove, the yellow, the button, and the black. They are all short, messy trees, wavy, waxy-leaved, laced all over. I'm going to choose this image because we have contrasting images here. We have messy trees, waxy-leaved, but laced all over. When I think of laced, I think of lace, something that's pretty, weird. All this tangles from a black muck soil. Identify the word muck, right? Because I wouldn't expect something like muck to produce anything real usable. And it's repeated here. Whoops, good enough. Mud-sopped. Mud-sopped rag. That's an image that's not necessarily pleasant. And then we have muck again. Muck without any other plants, shaded, cold to the touch, tracked at the water edge by herons and nosed by sharks. So we're talking about the muck here, which is a little bit different than how she talks about the mangroves themselves. So we see a contrast. Accident, especially if we look at it within the context of exist and survival. And then we have the repetition of floating islands again. Hurricane, flood, or riptide. We've got hurricane and riptide, negative. Hurl it into the ocean. It floats. I'm going to identify this. Short. So this for me would fall under syntax, right? We have this long sentence here, which is followed by it floats. We have all these negative things followed by it floats, right? So here's what I would like you to do. Take a few minutes, work through the text, identify examples of language and perhaps sentence structure that stand out as perhaps particularly meaningful. Look for patterns, words that are repeated, or words that are contradicted. Contrasting images. And see if you can work through this.
I don't know what paragraph it is.
For Germany?
I think it's 6. Where it starts, nor a tree can live without soil.
Yep.
Yeah. I picked up on that.
So I'm not sure this is negative when she talks about germinating fruit in the tree, the germinated embryo. And nice catch, I did not mark that. You've got the repetition of the word germinate here.
I just thought because, like, maybe she's alluding that, like, because, like, germinate, people always associate with kind of like nature, and that's why it's unappealing to them.
Mhm.
So, like, the unappealing aspects create life, and they're kind of negligent on that.
Yeah, so this idea of creating life, right? Whoops. Did not want to do that. In the midst of some pretty negative characteristics, right? She talks, we've got words like starve and alien, feeding on death, right? But these are kind of juxtaposed with words like growing and germinate, repetition of the word more seeds, more muck yield more trees, right? Society grows. Society is seen as a positive thing. It's a living, breathing, moving entity. Notice all of the repetition of floating. Floating, 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 floats, right? Floating islands. So we've got this idea of ungrounded, but still thriving. So when we look at tone words, what is her tone? Whoops. What is her tone? So if our subject here is really kind of the uniqueness of mangroves, we're going to go a little bit beyond that and add in how mangroves come to be, how they grow, how they survive. How does she feel about it? So when we're looking at this, focus on the creation of life in the midst of pretty negative characteristics. So we've got creation of life next to that. We've got this next to this. So we have consistently oppositional ideas. Look at your list of tone words and phrases. See if you can come up with a tone word that seems to make sense, or a couple of tone words. How does she feel about her subject? How does she feel about mangroves and the way they come to be and continue to exist? I'm just trying to look up what the exact question is on. All right, 7 and 8. What tone words, if you're looking at your list, what tone words might you apply? And I think by categorizing the word, I mean, we know we're talking about positive, right? Overwhelmingly positive. We can ignore humor, irony, sarcasm, sorrow, fear, worry. I think she's more than neutral, which brings us back to this. So when we look at that list of words, how does she feel? So I think that's a good place to start, but I think it goes beyond just encouraging. So like an encouraging tone would be like a, come on, you can do it, you know, whereas I'm not sure that's what she's getting at. Carly? Is she? Yeah, I think there's definitely this sense of appreciative and like wonder going on. So keep appreciative there. Let's keep that at the back of our minds.
Like I can really find something to go along with it, but I think like I could say like admiration, like admiring.
Yeah, you could say admired. So, and I'm glad you said that because this list isn't exhaustive. So it doesn't mean you can only choose from this list, but it gives you a starting point. So I think there's definitely an admiring tone, right? She talks about heaps of salt. So not just a little bit of salt, like a little bit of salt makes things taste good. Heaps of salt is really incompatible with anything, right? So she's got an admiring tone. What else? You see any other words? Sam?
Enthusiastic.
Enthusiastic, she's definitely like, yeah, this is really cool, you know? So when we're looking at tone, let's add some of this. So tone words, I'm like playing around with colors that makes it pretty. Oh, don't do that. What else did we say? Enthusiastic.
Did you say enlightening?
Yeah, maybe to an extent enlightening, because I think that goes in with admiring. I feel like the connotation of, I think it's in the family of, but I'm not sure enlightening exactly. I just feel like a wondrous, like this admiring, wondrous, amazed attitude towards this. You know what I mean? And I'm not sure, like, yeah, I'm having a hard time myself grasping like the perfect word to capture all that.
I think it's like more respecting nature for what it is.
Okay, there's definitely a respect, she recognizes the danger
Yeah.
of what's going on, right? And says that they are able to exist regardless. So
Yeah.
admiring, respectful, wondrous. And my memory is terrible, so I can't remember the other words that we said. All right, so if we're looking at 7 and 8, this is number 7, which is identify the tone. So I want you to add that. And then 8 is the purpose of the piece. So I'm going to go back up here to purpose, and I'm actually going to slide it down here next to tone, because tone and purpose are directly related. This over here. This up here. And I'm going to use this template. I would like you to use this template as well. So Dillard writes, teaching a stone to talk in order to, what is she trying to inform her audience of?
Is that rhetorical?
No, what's the informational piece?
Oh.
It's about the business of
All right, in order to inform her audience of the unique and sometimes harsh circumstances that lead to the formation and growth of mangroves. Ultimately, moving her audience to, what is she trying to persuade her audience of?
Mangroves are the artists. Well, you.
Yeah, so she wants you to have the same appreciation for these things as she does. So ultimately, moving her audience to I feel like I need to add something after respect and appreciation for. Without repeating the word mangroves. Ultimately, moving her audience to a sense of respect and appreciation for.
Moving onward.
There you go. All right, we are done with teaching a stone to talk. So your exit ticket for today. What is the tone of teaching a stone to talk? What is the purpose? We just did that. We did it together. Don't stress about the exit ticket. How about that? Yeah, don't worry about it.
Okay.
Yeah, just type whatever I want.
Sure.
Yeah, we just type something fun.
Sure. If you want to type something fun and click turn in so it doesn't show up on,
Yeah, that's what I don't want.
yeah, so you can even type nothing and click turn in just so that it doesn't show up on your calendar of things to do. We got through more than I thought we would get through, so.
So basically, we also don't have any homework tonight.
I think so. Let's look at your week at a glance. Yeah, I think we are done with this. Yeah, tomorrow we're doing multiple choice stuff, so there's nothing for you to do to prepare for our multiple choice stuff tomorrow. It's literally tomorrow we'll go over essentially like AP Lang multiple choice is think of how it's like the fact that you have to answer 60 minutes worth of multiple choice before you write 3 essays is like a sucker punch before you actually. It's not fun. So we'll talk about that tomorrow.
Partners.
I'm gonna be here on Friday.
Oh, great.
Put it this way, you're only expected to get 50% of multiple choice correct.
Really?
Yep. So if you get 50% of multiple choice correct, plus,
That's why it's
like,
Yeah,
6
I will.
on each of the essays, you're gonna end up with like
Here we go.
a 3, 4 on the exam.
Bye, Karen.
Bye.
Okay.
So 50%. I mean, obviously, the better you do on multiple choice, it gives you wiggle room with the open response. So if your strength is multiple choice, you have wiggle room with open response. If your strength is writing, you know, give you some wiggle room with multiple choice.
Just so you know for this, I did turn it in late, but I had to unsubmit it because, it wouldn't let me write on there until I didn't unsubmit it here.
That's fine.
So, do you want, like, when I turn it in for,
I think we did, I think you returned it to you. You did a very nice job.
but it was only graded on one thing, and I graded on today's.
Yeah, don't worry. So I was looking for the other, and I just have to go back and change the other stuff.
Oh, okay, so I don't have to worry about
No,
that?
so you don't have to worry about it. So I was looking for those 6 comments, the relationship statements, and then the relationship between introduction and conclusion.
Okay, then on this, I'm gonna mark it down, because I can't stand seeing things.
I hear you.
It really bothers me.
I've started going through Google Classroom and deleting stuff that I don't care about and therefore don't want my students to care about.
Would you get
Because
last
especially my 10th graders are turning in like
I've been eating.
activators and exit tickets from September from back when we had to give them for attendance purposes.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, you have a 4 and you have to do like writing. And I feel really, really bad because
Forward, like, that's really
I'm probably exaggerating a little bit, but that may be, you know,